Good morning. Today I'm happy to introduce Reverend Onryu Kennedy. She's received Dharma transmission in both Katagiri and Uchiyama Roshi lineages. She's done practice periods at Tassajara and Toshoji in Japan, and she's done the formal training at Toshoji as Shuso, and also she's a approved formal Japanese recognized teacher as a missionary here in the USA. And that credential is not so easy to obtain. And she's an associate teacher here at Hokyoji, and she has always valued social justice work as an expression of vow, and she experiences great joy in the opportunity to learn and teach Buddhist practices. So, thank you, G, for joining us today.
I'd like to offer big offerings. Ryushin, would you mind offering me incense?
The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of Tathagata's truth. The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth, the unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth.
Good morning. Good morning, Cloud Sangha. Good to see you all. Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge and offer homage to all the matriarchs and patriarchal ancestors. Homage to our teachers, both sentient and non-sentient beings. Homage to the seen and the unseen beings who support our practice. Homage to the land that nourishes us in our practice of the way. Homage to the native nations that have taken care of this land we practice on. Thank you. We've been studying the songs of the Teris. Teris is a Pali word for the first elder nuns. And some of this is repeat, but I want to acknowledge there are new people online. So I just want to honor where people may have heard this and those who have not heard it, so that we are kind of in alignment to our capacity, if that makes sense. So Teri is a Pali word for elder nuns. Gatha is verse or poems or songs. And I resonate with songs because these are spiritual utterances. And the study that I've done is that actually these Teris, these first Buddhist nuns who practiced with the Buddha, sang songs of their enlightenment. I'm really struck with that. Because when I think of songs, I often think of joy. Though there are sad songs, there are very joyful songs. So these Teris sang songs of their awakening experiences. And I just want to, I've got a lot that I'd like to bring forward today, and I realize it's a little ambitious, but I do want to talk about the songs, and then I want to pivot to Dogen Zenji's fascicle, Raihai Tokuzui, and end with a song. So I'd like to start with one of the songs that we studied this week, Vasaka. So many of these Teris knew the Buddha. They were family, they were friends, they were relatives, they were servants, and they were concubines, among many roles that people played in Buddha's life. So here's a song by Vasika. Practice the Buddha's teaching. You won't regret it. Right now, wash your feet. and sit down beside him. It's beautiful to me. It's beautiful in its expression of the Dharma. And also, what an opportunity. What a profound opportunity, precious opportunity to be able to sit next to the Buddha. My mind explodes at that thought. I'd like to introduce Bhikkhu Onryu to those who aren't aware of him. He's a great scholar of the Pali Canon. He's written many books. I've got one, the foundation of the First Nuns Order, which is a compilation of a critique on the Nikayas in relationship to the view of the first women ancestors. And this particular book is The Daughter of the Buddhas. It's a very beautiful book. It's a survey of the different Therigatas, including nuns and laywomen, back in Buddha's time. And while I was doing this study, I became aware of my identity as a white woman in a Western culture converted to Buddhism. And I thought, who am I to be, it's okay to study, but who am I to give voice to these first Buddhist ancestors, women whose shoulders I stand on? I wasn't born in India. I wasn't born in Nepal. Yes, I have a heart and a great desire to awaken. And I didn't have that experience that they had. Though I have the human experience of suffering. And I felt that the first Buddhist women ancestors had compassion for me and said, Onryu, you go. We got your back. So in this book, Daughters of the Buddha, this is Bhikkhu Onryu's last sentence, and I've read it. We've been studying for the past 2 weeks here at Hokyoji together, the Therigatha, the first Buddhist women. So some of this material we've already discussed, but I think it's worth repeating. So the last sentence in this book, Bhikkhu Onryu says, now this is after he's surveyed many nuns and laywomen in this book. It's awesome. With the above survey of the staggering range of extraordinary qualities and achievements completed, there is still one more thing to be said. In view of the potential intersectional combination of the pervasive discrimination against women in ancient and modern times, with the persistency of the racist belief that lacking whiteness of skin implies some sort of inferiority. It could be noted that all the protagonists of the amazing accomplishments and impressive feats surveyed in this book were what we nowadays call women of color. That just struck me. One of the things that I'm curious about is in Zen centers we talk about unraveling our racist karma. And yet, in the Midwest, I'm not aware of, and I did a lot of searching, and I still have a lot of searching to go regarding the first Buddhist women. But in the Midwest, I found little to nothing regarding the first Buddhist women. And I'm just curious about that, because I think that through my study, they have wisdom that is timeless, and that perhaps we could benefit from in our current times, in our current conditions. Just my curiosity. I want to bring forward one of the things we did say in our broadcast regarding this winter practice period that we were going to study these badass first women ancestors. So I just want to acknowledge that, because there's many badass first women ancestors. And I aspire to be like them. They're formidable and they're ferocious in their compassion. It's amazing. So I just want to briefly introduce to us today Buddha Kandala Kahasa. Some of you might remember her. She was one where the Buddha met her, saw her, and said, "Come, Buddha." So I don't have time at this moment to share her story, and I invite you to read a little bit of her biography, because she came from a very wealthy family, and she got more or less of everything she wanted. And one day when she was looking out the window, she saw this robber who was going to be executed. And she immediately wanted to be with him. So her family arranged to have him not executed, and the family arranged for the wedding. Her spouse continued He did not pivot his karma. He continued to have criminal thoughts. And he wanted more from Buddha, and he wanted to actually murder her. So under the guise and Buddha was very insightful. She knew what was going on in this moment, and he said, "Let's go for a walk to the cliff." And she was like,
Wasn't very subtle.
no, he wasn't. He wasn't very subtle. So Buddha and him were walking to the cliff. And this is where Susan Murkoff picks up the story. At the summit of the cliff, he said, "Do you really think I come here to make an offering? What a fool you are. I have come for your jewels." And he ordered her to remove her outer robe and wrap her jewels inside. Without hesitation, she replied, "Please grant me one wish." And she asked if she could embrace him once before she died. He agreed, and she embraced him first from the front. Then embracing him from the back, she pushed him over the cliff. For this act, even the deity of the cliff applauded her, praising her keen presence of mind and saying, "Wisdom is not always confined to men. A woman too is wise and shows it now and then." She was, yeah. So I just share that to give you kind of a sense of her quick wisdom and her quick thinking in the midst of swirling in the myriad of conditions. So Isabel Horner writes of the unique ordination when Buddha approached the Buddha, and Buddha said, "Come." That was her ordination. When female novices wished to receive the Upasammapada ordination, they had to ask for it from both the Sanghas, the Sangha of nuns and monks. Only one kind of exception to this custom was known, and that was when Gautama himself ordained an entrant by saying, "Come," calling the entrant by name. This kind of ordination is recorded of one woman, Buddha Kandala Kasa, the ex-Jan. In the time of the Buddha, the Jans ordained both women and men. And I do want to acknowledge our trans, our non-binary, and our non-conforming, or our gender non-conforming people. My intention is not to exclude anybody. The texts often refer to two genders, men and women. But I think I just want to uplift that Buddha was an ex-Jan, and she had been wandering and practicing throughout India and was known as a great debater. So I'd like to offer her song. This is her song of awakening. I cut my hair and wore the dust, and I wandered in one robe, finding fault where there was none, and finding no fault where there was. Then I came from my rest one day at Vulture Peak and saw the pure Buddha with his monks. I bent my knee, paid homage, pressed my palms together. We were face to face. "Come, Bada," he said. That was my ordination. I have wandered throughout Anga, in Magadha, Baji, Kasi, and Kosala. 55 years with no debt. I have enjoyed the alms of these kingdoms. A wise lay follower gained a lot of merit. He gave a robe to Buddha, who is free from all bonds. I would say she's rocking in the Buddha field, but that's my opinion. I'd like to bring forward Dogen's fascicle 9. I don't think that this fascicle is separate from the Terries. Fascicle 9, in the translation that I'm using, is Kaz Tanahashi's translation. It's receiving the marrow, Raihai Tokozui. And before I begin, I want to offer gratitude to Paula Arai, Shahaku Okamura Roshi, Norman Fisher, and Reverend Ejin Linda Ruth Cutts. So Dogen wrote this fascicle in 1240. And it's prior to him writing this fascicle, he traveled to China in 1223 until 1227. And it was in China he witnessed women as heads of temples and women being respected as teachers. He experienced these women, Chinese women, in leadership positions, and I believe this impacted him. So Raihai Tokozui means Rai, sign of respect, touching the forehead to the ground. Hai, ceremony. Together, Raihai is prostration, giving up the body and plunging into the bow, into the bow. Toko, to attain, and yet actually nothing is attained, like the Heart Sutra. Okamura Roshi says this: when we use the word attain the Dharma, it means we awake to the reality that there is nothing to gain and nothing to lose. When we read the story of someone who has attained enlightenment, that process of attaining enlightenment is a process of losing. I think that is wisdom. Because to attain enlightenment, we give up nothing other than our egocentricity, our identity of self, in order to awaken. These Terries, their stories are stories of many of them experienced great suffering. And going through that suffering, they came out and were awakened. They gave everything up their ideas, their self-concept. It's inconceivable to my mind what these Terrys gave up to awaken. Dogen Zenji writes, in this fascicle, he writes, in the practice of unsurpassable complete enlightenment, what is most difficult is to find a guiding teacher. The guiding teacher should be a strong person, regardless of being a male or female. He continues, the teacher should be a person of thusness, with excellent knowledge and wild fox, transformative spirit, a shapeshifter, whether living in the past or present. The wild fox is a shapeshifter. We can pivot and this is my thought. We can pivot and transform our karmic consciousness. A teacher of thusness is a teacher who faces themselves no matter what the conditions. Practice realization 1, whether in a temple, in a grocery store, or bearing witness to a loved one's illness. Thusness does not discriminate and is ever present everywhere and in all beings. So, to me, and from the reading I've done and heard from others, this is the main point of Dogen's fascicle. That gender is not a factor in seeking a guiding teacher. Dogen Zenji continues, this is the face, essence, of attaining the marrow. The guiding virtue, this is not ignoring cause and effect, and that's the box koan as well. This is not ignoring cause and effect, and you and I are just this. Our karmic consciousness is not to be ignored and is included in this moment. The practice of precepts support capacity to acknowledge cause and effect and discern what an appropriate response to these conditions are. That comes from Dogen. It's so beautiful. Dogen Zenji continues to write, practice with the heart, practice with beyond the heart, practice even with a half a heart. This is very beautiful. What I hear Dogen saying is start where you are. Whatever amount of heart one has, practice with that heart, and then go beyond that heart, and continue to practice with that heart and go beyond that heart. It reminds me of the Heart Sutra. Gone, gone, gone beyond. Go, 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 go. Don't stop. Keep going. It's endless. It's boundless. This fascicle also emerges from the story of Bodhidharma, asking his 4 disciples to express their understanding of the Dharma. All 4 disciples were part of Bodhidharma's body. Dao Fu, Bodhidharma said, you have attained my skin. Zhangzhi, Chinese, female, ancestor. Bodhidharma, you have my flesh. Dao Yu, you have my bones. Weiku, he didn't say anything and just bowed. Bodhidharma said, you have attained my marrow. And this is not steps and stages. This is Bodhidharma's body. It's the whole. It's the whole works. So I want to offer, Dogen talks about helping students to go beyond themselves and attain the marrow. And I would like to speak to actions with what I have heard and what I believe is just inging, doing in Zen. And I understand that many Westerners have some resistance to bowing. I kind of like it. It breaks me up. It breaks up my ego, my self-centeredness. In the past, I have spent a great amount of time with Tomoe-san Katagiri. She is a very important teacher to me. We have spent time cooking, drinking tea, walking, and talking together. She would often invite me to chant the Makahanya Haramita Shingyo with her. She would light the humble candle in incense and offer that to the altar. We would bow together and chant the sutra. After chanting the sutra, we would finish with 3 bows to the altar, then a bow to each other. She would blow out the candle, and we would leave the room, go into the kitchen, and make tea. This was not a practice. This was her life, doing the next thing. The teaching Tomoe-san offered me was not separate from her living. This is embodying the way. This is a precious gift Tomoe-san offered me freely. Her bowing was full of generosity, an expression of liberation. Everything was included in her life. Dr. Paula Ari writes, bowing is an act of strength when done with wisdom and compassion. Also, she writes in her book, one of her many books, Bringing Zen Home, The Healing Art of Japanese Women Rituals. She writes, women didn't need men to acknowledge their inherent Buddha nature. She writes to the resolute and strength of women monastics, pivoting the male-dominated structures without manipulating, complaining, or aggression, acknowledging the sexism and pivoting the way women monastics stand in their own authority. Shakyamuni Buddha said, in meeting with a teacher who expressed the Dharma of enlightenment, do not consider their caste or facial appearance. Do not dislike their shortcomings or judge their activities. Value their prajna, their wisdom and teaching. Take care of them. Make offerings and bow in respect. This is all easier said than done, I understand, and I'm still learning. How do I take care of my teachers? Acknowledging my shortcomings and vowing to do better. In this fascicle, Dogen writes, when Joshu, who would later become great master of the Song dynasty, aroused the aspiration for enlightenment and was about to begin a journey, he said to himself, I will ask about the Dharma of anyone who surpasses me, even a 7-year-old. I will teach anyone who is behind me, even a 100-year-old. When asking a 7-year-old about Dharma, an old man like Joshu bows. This is Dogen. It's beautiful. It is an extraordinary aspiration, the mind art of an old Buddha. It is an excellent custom of study that when a nun has attained the way, attained Dharma and started to teach, monks who seek Dharma and study join her assembly, bow to her, and ask about the way. It is just like finding water at a time of thirst. So bowing is reverence. It's an expression of the heart. Joshu was a great teacher in the Song dynasty. Though he had an awakening experience at a young age, he continued to practice and integrate his experience and began teaching at 80 years old. It is written that he lived to about 120. There's 2 koans that are in this fascicle, and they're awesome. And I'm going to try to honor the time so that we have opportunities for people to ask questions. So one of the stories in this fascicle is about a nun, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce her name, Leoran Miaoshan. Miaoshan was the abbess in China of a Zen temple. Xian was a revered teacher in the lineage of Rinzai. After leaving his teacher, Linji, who was the teacher of Rinzai, he went to Miaoshan. The background of the story is Xian came into the temple wearing a hat and his sandals. Miaoshan sends her attendant out and asks him, "Are you here for sightseeing or to study the Dharma?" He said, "To study the Dharma." He then takes off his sandals and leaves on his hat. Miaoshan said, "Where are you from?" Xian said, "From the entrance." And this entrance could be a pun, considered mouth. Miaoshan said, "Why don't you close it?" Xian was silent. He made a bow and expressed himself as a student of Miaoshan. He then asked, "How is Miaoshan, Mount Mo?" Miaoshan said, "It does not show its peak. Can't say what it is, cannot be grasped." Xian said, "Who is the person inside the mountain?" Miaoshan said, "It is beyond man and woman. All dharmas are marked by emptiness." Xian said, "How come you don't change?" Miaoshan said, "I'm not a wild fox. Why should I change?" She doesn't take the bait. Xian bowed. Then he aroused the aspiration of enlightenment, and he worked as head of the garden for 3 years. Later he became head of a monastery, and it's not clear if that monastery was Mount Mo or a different one. And he said to the assembly, "I received half a ladle of gruel from Father Linji and another half at Mother Myoshin. So I had a full ladle and have been satisfied to this moment. He was filled with Dharma. Dogen writes, the fact that Shien bowed to Myoshin and asked for the Dharma was an excellent example of aspiration, a model for a latecomer. It should be called hammering open the gate bar or breaking through a bamboo node. I resonate with this image of breaking through a bamboo node. Continue doing no matter what, and the possibility is inconceivable that maybe in an unexpected way, an unexpected moment, breaking through one's karmic consciousness and experiencing freedom may occur. And this was what I kept hearing in these songs from the Terries. Just keep doing the next thing. And some of them, their stories, their songs, they would be practicing so hard. I mean, expressing their practice, their exertion, not in a way that's complaining, but in a way that you can feel it. I can feel their exertion. And finally, in a moment, an unexpected moment, boom, the whole world opened up, the whole heart opened up in an unexpected way. If it can happen for them, it can happen for all beings. Okay, there's another koan. I'll save it for another day because I want to end with a poem. And we read this poem yesterday. And we liked it. We do have preferences, and we're just trying to move beyond our likes and dislikes, and it's a process. So have mercy on us and each other. This is from Utama. This is her poem, her song. Her song. 4 or 5 times I left my cell. I had no peace of mind, no control over my mind. I went to a nun I thought I could trust. She taught me the Dharma, the elements of body and mind, the nature of perception, and earth, water, fire, and wind. I heard what she said, and I sat cross-legged 7 days full of joy. When on the 8th, I stretched out my feet, the great dark was torn apart. Thank you. I wanted to leave time for reflections, comments. So please bring your voices into the circle. Silence.
As I don't hear unvoiced consonants very well, does she say many times I left my cell or left my cell?
Left my cell. Was a quarter. It's
Quarter, cell.
her room.
Not cell. Okay.
Right.
This is Patrice.
Hi, Patrice.
I just want to thank you again for bringing attention to this and connecting it with Zen, which is for me very, very interesting. I also just wanted to note something that you did, which I think is not well known at all, which is sometimes we think that the Buddhist Sangha was the only Sangha that had nuns, but actually this idea that the conversion of Buddha, who was a Jain nun, and very respected in that tradition, that she would make that conversion to the Buddha's teaching, Gautama's teachings, is really significant. And I think that's often we don't know that there were other monastic orders for women, and she was really considered a very great debater and important person, and her conversion was really important. So I just want to thank you for bringing that to our attention and uplifting that, because these are just wonderful poems and songs, and are not very well known. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presence, and thank you for your comments and reflection. We appreciate them very much.
This is Kyoku, and I also, GD, am feeling such a lot of appreciation for the tremendous amount of energy you bring and exude in your own practice, but for bringing us so much solid information about women practicing. It's impossible to know everything, and yet I have in my time practicing Buddhism just really benefited from stories about people who are practicing in all kinds of ways. It's like they tuck themselves away, like I tuck a Kleenex in my sleeve, and I can reach in and pull them out and be again enlightened in a way. I very much appreciate you really helping us to be exposed to something that it's quite likely I, even as a female, wouldn't particularly pursue, to dig deeper, to meet these women in a way. Thank you so much for both the energy and lesson of your own practice. I really appreciate getting to practice with you.
Thank you, Kyoku. Thank you very much. I think we can close. If there's no more comments or questions, I don't want to push people to bring their voices in. I just want to say thank you for all your presence.
Just had one question. When I read the Joshu story, the way I remember it, I haven't read it for a long time. And I don't think he said this, but the way I remember it, he said, if I meet a 7-year-old girl, is that the way you said?
Okay, I can,
In other words, if I meet a 7-year-old girl along the way and she understands more than I do, I will ask her about it.
okay, so what,
This is Tanakashi's translation.
well, this is Tanahashi's translation, so there's many translations
Okay.
out there. So what he says is, when he says Zhaozhou, I don't pronounce Chinese, I barely pronounce
Zhaozhou.
Japanese. When Joshu, who would later become great master of the Song dynasty, aroused the aspiration of enlightenment and was about to begin a journey, he said to himself, I will ask about the Dharma of anyone who surpasses me, even a 7-year-old. I will teach anyone who is behind me, even a 100-year-old.
Okay.
So,
I might be wrong, but the translation I first read said a 7-year-old girl or a 100-year-old man.
yeah,
So,
and
not
that
sure.
could be cross Tanahashi or cross. Yeah, one of the many translations out there.
Yeah,
This is but one.
yeah. So,
Because he does say, when asking a 7-year-old about the Dharma, and then he says, an old man like Joe, oh, that's Dogen talking. Okay.
well, anyway, just that's the way I remember it, but I'll check, see if.
Yeah, let me know which translation.
Okay.
It's possible in an effort to make it gender neutral, they took the point out of the story.
Could be.
But this was Kaz Tanahashi. He wrote this.
Yeah, but I mean, if they decided to make the translation gender neutral or non-sexist,
Yeah.
they may have taken the point of the story accidentally. Although, cause of the stand-up guys.
Could be.
Okay.
May our intention equally penetrate every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Illusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Illusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for joining us. Next Sunday will be Dokai.
Okay. Bye.